Last week I got all my work done early. I thought I was being good. I thought, hey, I can enjoy myself. I can take it easy. But I was wrong. Because 2 days after I got all my work done, or the day after rather, a terrorist attack happened. A Muslim walked into a gay bar, shot it up, killed a lot of people. And I wake up to find that apparently among the white internet keyboard jockeys and microphone jockeys, a gay bar hosting a La Raza night is Western civilization. And this is what sets us over the edge. More than San Bernardino. More than Paris. A bunch of Hispanic homosexuals die. And every racially fixated white freaks out. This event, this attack in Orlando, all these dead homosexuals, all these dead sodomites, these individuals, this event now serves as the linchpin of how Islam is the number one existential threat to Western civilization. What was the quote? Civilizations never die due to homicide. Civilizations always commit suicide. That's not the only obvious thing we forget. But we will explain and elaborate further in just a little bit. First, I must introduce the show. This is Common Filth Radio, episode 94. Thank you very, very much for listening, and I really hope you're listening. Of all the episodes you need to listen to, of all of the words I say you need to listen to these. Lately, I've been repeating this. So many of us are emblematic of our own decline. What we believe on matters of morality, conduct, the soul, perfectly encapsulate our decline if we haven't already flatlined. And I'm not sure what it is. Let's take the pro-West, pro-white reaction to the Orlando terrorist attacks, for example. Again, San Bernardino, nobody makes much mention of it. Paris, a little bit more, but again, not nearly as fervent of a reaction as the one to the Orlando nightclub shooting. This is now what we use as the prime example of how Western civilization is under attack and it's declining. A homosexual nightclub hosting a La Raza night. In the most non-white of white countries, by the way. And this is what your internet pro-whites are going out of their way to defend. Well, Muslims, they blow up buildings, gays don't. Oh, you mean the buildings that are owned by corporations that promote miscegenation and homosexuality in television advertising? Buildings that house those corporations? If those buildings are not owned by those corporations? And you're worried about those buildings coming down when they are antithetical to your cause. They represent a threat to it. Well, let me tell you something. They're also a threat to mine. How many pro-Christian commercials, marketing campaigns are those corporations putting forth? How many? So I guess the internet pro-whites have a common ally in the corporations. I guess the right wing is coming back around to being pro-capitalist again. And so is the left. They're fully supportive. They created the social and cultural agenda that corporations now enforce. I'm going to read you a tweet here. And this is from John Nolte, who I don't know who this person is. He tweeted after the Orlando terrorist attack. The tweet says, "There's nothing more American than a gay club, a place where people can go to be themselves. This terror attack is an atrocity." This encapsulates the reaction to it, the terrorist attack in Orlando. Oh my God, this is an attack on the West and America. Again, Western civilization is now a homosexual nightclub hosting La Raza night, all because of a common aggressor. All because you're both victims of the same thing, either real or imagined. You find solidarity with these people in your victimhood, real or imagined. Why is victimhood such an important part of your identity? That you are now prioritizing this as something that requires your protection. We talk so much about identity and how we're all identitarians. You have no idea how your psyche works and operates. You have no idea who you are. Pro-whites, racially fixated whites, your entire identity is dependent on politics. Your entire culture is filtered through the ephemeral nature of politics, the contextual nature of politics, the situational ethics of politics. Whites who fixate entirely on being white, even though they have no idea how their psyche works and how their tribe informs how they think, they view themselves as entirely political entities. Here's where you pause the video and you're typing out your angry comments and emails, or you're typing out your angry comments on anonymous image boards about anti-white. No, you need to listen. You need to listen because you have no idea how you think. You have no idea how you think. You have no idea how you operate. You have no idea who the hell you are. Which is why you think the only reason whites do anything wrong is because of Jews. Now, this is not an argument that, oh, X is Y. No, this is exactly the same argument. Blacks blame slavery and whitey for all their problems. Slavery ended. Nobody alive today was a slave. Nobody alive in America today is a slave. Which is why the blame whitey, blame slavery, blame whitey for enslaving us argument is so stupid. That reason, blaming whitey slavery, that reason holds no validity when it comes to explaining black behavior and black failure. Just as blaming Jews does not excuse white failure. It does not explain white failure, because racially fixated whites love to brag about how much higher their IQ is and how much better they are, and the only problem whites have is that they're pathologically altruistic. That's really funny. That's like somebody saying, like, well, I'm too much of a perfectionist. That's my biggest problem. Or like, I'm too nice. I'm just too nice. Very convenient. That your biggest problem is something you brag about. But we'll get back to this point later. White culture filtered almost entirely through politics. We have little to no culture of our own separate from politics. Those of us who fixate on how white we are. Our sole obsession is with our own skin color and skull shape. And despite that, we have no idea how we work and how we operate and what our flaws truly are. And this is because our culture is almost entirely political. You cannot establish a coherent identity, a coherent culture through politics, where one day someone's your enemy, the next day they're your ally based on some event that happens. Based on some circumstance. Based on situational ethics, moral relativism. And you see this in how schizophrenic these people are, these pro-whites are in their beliefs. For example, they say we need to have more white babies. They're now saying LGBT acceptance and rights and gay marriage, it's an important part of white culture and white identity, all because we now share a common victim, real or imagined. And that's the only reason. It's interesting. You say we need to make white babies, yet you are supporting those who represent the death of the tribe. Those who represent a demographic dead end. Another common sentiment, white people are the best because we invent things. Wow, look at all the inventions we have. Yet we use our inventions to colonize the world's economies. Third world locales we colonize, then colonize our labor market, and disenfranchise the common people through globalization. Another common sentiment. White people are the best because we're the smartest. That's what they say. And then they also say the only reason why whites fail at anything, the only reason why we fail on a moral, behavioral basis, the only thing why anything is wrong with us is because we fall for Jewish mind tricks. We're smart, yet we fall for tricks time and time again. The merchants' tricks time and time again. Another obvious thing we have forgotten. Another sign of our death, of our decline, of our deterioration. We forget this very obvious thing, and it's a cliche. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And this leads me into the next common thing you see among internet pro-whites. Something that's always said is, white people have more agency than black people. We have low time preference. We're not high time preference. White people have more agency than black people, therefore we're better. But Jews made us do it. And then they say Jews are bad, but they find solidarity with those who emulate Jewish behavior. Like being fixated with profit margins and cheap labor. By decimating the demand for labor through economic colonization and subsequent globalization. Whites emulate Jews by adopting material and wealth as their god. We emulate them by being Sodomites. Tel Aviv consistently considered one of the greatest gay cities in the world. And white cultural ideological schizophrenia extends far beyond that. That's just what comes immediately to mind. And this is all because we choose to filter our culture through politics. Isn't there saying politics makes strange bedfellows? Where your alliances are constantly in flux, they're fluid, you have no foundation, you have no basis of where you are. You have no standards if everything you do is done politically. And how can you have a coherent white identity if this is your culture? The answer is you can't. Which is why you look at the worst behaviors, the most self-destructive behaviors, the most demographically destructive behaviors and say, yeah, this is what we need to protect because Muslims don't like it. As I've said before, these white nationalist, pro-West homosexuals, their priority is hedonism. And they love Western civilization, present-day Western civilization, because white people are the only people stupid enough to tolerate this behavior. They love freedom, because living in a free society requires that the members of it restrain themselves in every respect. A free society must have self-regulation, and not just in theory. You see, they prey on the fact that we exercise restraint. These hedonists, those that prioritize come above all else, and those who also pay lip service to Western civilization. For example, Gavin McInnes and Milo Yiannopoulos tongue kiss. Full on open mouth, sticking their tongues down each other's throat. And these are like, oh, the Islam is so bad. Look, and we're gonna look in a reaction to this Orlando nightclub shooting. We're gonna queer off with each other. Yeah, that'll show them. And this is why ISIS is laughing at us. This is why they're posting on their forums. Oh, which color flag are they gonna light their buildings up next? They're laughing at us, and this is why. And one of the moderators of my subreddit posted on another subreddit. In response to this, Gavin McInnes and Milo Yiannopoulos queering off with each other in public, he says, straight, whew, that's not how it works, implying straight. Yeah, he's not. This guy has always been a hedonistic degenerate. Like so many others, he is only pretending to be right-wing because he has the cognitive functionality to realize that totalitarian communism and Islam would have him made into a slave or chandelier. Liberal democracy is the only system that is close to stable in its dysfunction, making it ideal for the slightly more intelligent retard. So in other words, people like this, like McGinnis and Yiannopoulos, they only value the West because they can get away with their bullshit in the West. To them, and now however many other pro-whites, so many of them, I can't even keep track. That nightclub, that homosexual nightclub hosting La Raza night, that's Western civilization. More than San Bernardino, more than Paris. And Gavin McGinnis has children, and this is the example he's setting for them. A terrorist attack happens at a gay nightclub, you better show solidarity with them. You better defend Western civilization by queering off in public. And again, this is a nightclub that was hosting a La Raza night at the time of the attack. Which reminds me, here's another problem with the white psyche. We can't fathom incentives beyond the carnal. We don't understand non-carnal incentives for engaging in a behavior. For saying what we say, doing what we do. We think like, wait, you can't come from that. Why are you doing it? What's the incentive? I'll give you a few examples. This comment here says, CF is an anti-white cuck. He pretends that all degeneracy comes from white people and that most white people are degenerates. Yet so many pro-white pull suck this guy's cock. Right to the dick sucking when this has nothing to do with fellatio. Oh, you suck dick, he sucks dick, you suck his dick. Why do we always jump to that as whites? The thought of sucking cock is never very far from the white man's mind, it seems. Even when the situation at hand has nothing to do with it. And in response to a terror threat on San Diego, somebody said this. Common Filth is furiously masturbating and looking up Korans on Amazon at this point. Again, more sexual activity. When the situation at hand has nothing to do with sex. The question of sucking dick, the question of masturbating, never far from the pro-white's mind. And it seems that this reveals itself most frequently when the situation has nothing to do with any of that. So, what does this say about where our souls are, where our psyches are? Well, first of all, I'd argue that most of us don't have a soul, which is why we go straight to the carnal. Which is why we go straight to carnal incentives. Oh, you're not sad about this thing happening? You must be masturbating furiously to it. They say somebody likes Common Filth, the Common Filth channel on YouTube. I don't. Therefore, anybody who do, they must suck his dick. For so much talk about white identity and being pro-white, you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea who you are. You are disconnected socially, you're disconnected culturally, you are disconnected spiritually. You are soulless. Which is why so many of you jump to carnal conclusions in situations that do not pertain to the matter. Because you can't fathom anything good beyond your own orgasm. For example, in penis envy news, white girls have penis envy news, Adele, singer-songwriter, tells critic to suck my dick while on stage at concert video shows. Some dickhead tried to say that my voice isn't me on record. Dude, suck my dick, Adele said in the video shared by Consequence of Sound, following comments made by producer Tony Visconti. So this Tony fella, he speculates. He hears her record. He hears her music, her new music. He says, that doesn't sound too much like Adele. It might be somebody else. Does that have anything to do with dicks? Does that have anything to do with sex? No. What does she do? What does she do? She jumps right to the dick sucking with no intermediate steps to get there. You think I don't sound the same? Suck my dick. Does that not sound like the same dick you make fun of black people for? Even worse, this is a woman. She doesn't have a penis. And you think our problems are only external? Oh, man. How stupid could you be to believe that? How blind could you be? You think, no, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong with us. Nothing's wrong with us. It's all your fault. It's your fault. You did it. You introduced it to our communities and shit. But going back to the Yiannopoulos McGinnis public queer off, he says at the beginning of the video, McGinnis, I saw somebody sent me the video, then they sent me the picture, then the video, which I really appreciate it. Yeah, there's nothing more than I like seeing in my mentions, two right-wing heroes, queering off with each other. Really appreciate it. But at the beginning of their presentation, the video, McGinnis says, we have a 2.0 in our religion. Oh, Sodomy 2.0 now with more white people? So many people rationalize the tolerance of reprobates like this by saying to themselves, well, they push people rightward. First of all, what does that even mean? And second, they push people rightward by using the leftist argument of, it's the present year. It's the present year. And how do they respond to the terrorist attack? This horrible attack on Western civilization. Again, a nightclub that hosts a La Raza night. No, excuse me, a gay nightclub where they're all engaged in their bizarre mating ritual. And I'm sure it's full of white identity. I'm sure. People like McGinnis, Yiannopoulos, and the right-wing Twitterati that defends them, they're not interested in upholding eternal values. That which exists beyond time, space, and genetics. They're not interested in the truth. They're only interested in, what can I get out of this? How can I benefit? How can I continue to live my life of wanton hedonism, self-destruction, and sin, free of any temporal consequences? Because as we know, they have no souls. They are soulless, godless people. They're so afraid of Muslims and ISIS because they're the only people on the planet who will bring about temporal, worldly retribution, which is all they can understand, which is why they pay lip service to Christianity, because Christians, we see something wrong, and what happens? We pray about it. And that's if we do anything at all. The destruction of the church happened under the watch of a country that was 80 to 90% white. Abortion rights, institutionalized infanticide happened under the watch of a nation 80 to 90% white. Go to Europe, travel beyond the borders of America, and find the same thing is happening there in even more white locales. Every cultural advent that we point to as an example of how far we've come and how great our society is, all products of a soulless, doomed population. Is it any wonder why we view homosexuals as the best thing you could possibly be? As I've said before, as I introduced this idea, nobody else was able to see this until I came along. Nobody else said it until I came along. Homosexuals, sodomites, they exist at the top of the social hierarchy. They are beyond reproach. Whether you're right wing, left wing, white, whatever you are, you can't criticize them. And I see this argument all the time from these real smart people who are into right-wing politics and have black and white war photos as their Twitter avatars. The real smart people always say, Muslims destroy the West, not gays. Again, civilizations die because of suicide, not homicide. And homosexuals, the sodomite, their ability to give life, where is it directed? Towards that which cannot give life. Towards that which is biologically incompatible. It is death. The most powerful thing you can do, give life. The one thing you can do to objectively change the course of human events, give life. And they don't. They give death. The thing that males have to make babies, to give life, to create life, these particular males, they use it to have fun and be themselves. And this is what we say is most compatible with Western civilization when it has no compatibility with any civilization, Western or otherwise. They are both a symptom of the culture of death, but symptoms, if go untreated, they start creating their own problems. So we worship that which is already dead because it does not give life. And what else could we reasonably expect from a culture that bows before the altar of death? We are a culture of death. As we are told by Jesus in the Gospels, those who love their lives on earth shall lose them. And we say, nah, we're smarter than that. It's interesting. In defying God's law, we end up proving it. And you're going to tell me that people who pay lip service to Christianity because Christians are the only people that tolerate their bullshit in the temporal sense? In this case, these specific individuals being Gavin McGinnis and Milo Yiannopoulos, you're going to tell me they don't love their earthly lives? You're going to tell me that they don't love all the hedonism they engage in, all the material wealth they have accumulated? They love it because it allows them to promote evil, to promote death, with no temporal retribution. And this is why they have a giant limp out. You know, all these pro-whites, they like to say, oh, black people, they have chimp outs. Well, this is a limp out over Muslim terrorism. Because Muslims are the only people on earth that look at it, that look at affronts to God and say, we're gonna bring about temporal retribution for this. And whites and those who benefit from white moral apathy are especially afraid of this, because temporal things are all we understand. And that is fact, not opinion. As evidenced by the posts we read earlier, criticizing me, saying that I'm masturbating about Islam, or people who like me suck my dick. So many of us, too many of us, perpetuate this culture of death by not understanding and recognizing non-carnal incentives to words, behavior, action, morality. So something I said earlier, people who don't take personal responsibility for their actions or the actions of their tribe, and they have to take responsibility for the actions of their tribe because the tribe is how they identify first and foremost. So here's this post that says, Common Cuckold took time out of a Tumblrista's video to shit on Pol because oy vey, white nationalism is bad because pro-whites is worshipping whiteness instead of my God, my Bible. How dare you filthy goyim worship or even talk about Kek? Kek being, I guess, an anime? An anime girl? Some kind of cartoon? Regardless. And then says, his entire channel is anti-white, and this is the important part we need to recognize here, ignores who makes the degenerate whites act the way they do. Again, this is not a lazy X is just like Y comparison. This is exactly what they are saying. You go listen to Tommy Sotomayor and listen to all the bullshit he has to deal with from these black people who are like, you harm our community. And he says, by doing what? By reporting the news? By reporting the news, I'm harming you. That harms black people in his situation. So again, person says, my entire channel is anti-white, ignore who makes the degenerate whites act the way they do, and intentionally ignores any and all non-white degenerates. Well, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Saudi oil sheiks paying off Instagram models so that they may, for the privilege of shitting on their face. For $10 to $50,000, they do this. Now, these Saudi oil sheiks, they're terrible. They're terrible for doing this, for wanting to do this. Instead of using their wealth in a righteous way to help their people, to improve humanity, to improve their tribe, to glorify God, anything. They could use their wealth for anything, but they use their money to shit on the faces of white women who happily accept the payments, who put a price tag on their dignity. Their dignity is for sale because they got to buy up some Gucci bags. They got to look fresh for Instagram. And who made them do it? The Jews. You'll say, yeah, by putting this stuff in media and schools. Oh, so they were dumb enough to believe it. I thought whites had the highest IQ of anybody. So here's the schizophrenia in action. This person having a limp out over my very valid criticisms of present day white culture and why it needs to change. So fine. We can say, okay, Jews made whites do it, but that completely undermines your narrative of white supremacy, white intelligence, and white agency. So you're sacrificing three things at the expense of denying personal accountability. That doesn't seem like a good trade-off to me. Seems like it would just be easier to take responsibility for your actions and the actions of your tribe. Actions that result from a sickness brought on not by lack of intelligence, not by lack of agency, but actions born of your own heart, your own self-defilement. But you're too proud to admit that something is wrong with you. You're too proud to admit that you perpetuate a culture of death. I noticed something very interesting among all the hubbub from Orlando. Very interesting. I've been so disappointed by the Christian reaction to this event. Well, we need to pray, and Jesus wept. Is God not responsible for everything that happens? Do we not force his hand every step of the way? We do. But the Christian response has been predictably limp-wristed, impotent, and it says nothing. Nothing you can't get from society, from the world. And if your response is no different than the secularist reprobate response, you're no good. So, most Christians have responded as such, except for a few exceptions. One being a Hispanic priest named Roger Jimenez, who says, we're not supposed to mourn this terrorist attack. Because this is God sorting them out. Because God speaks to us. And if we recognize the circumstances, because that's how God speaks to us, we're listening. But if we have a limp out and revert to libertarianism and, homosexuality is an important part of white culture, we're not listening. If we're having a limp out and queering off in public with each other, we're not listening. If we are listening, we understand that this Orlando terrorist attack is the result of two civilizations in terminal decline meeting. The pale-faced one is passive and implosive, sitting around drinking their cheap Lambrusco, talking about how sophisticated they are, as they defer their child-rearing responsibilities to their local school district. The other one, the darker one, more primitive, more explosive. And I just got this one when it comes to taking the sides of the Sodomites or ISIS. They say, oh, if I have ass cancer and I have a bomb strapped to me, I'd rather defuse the bomb first. That analogy is fine up until you realize that the pale-faced civilization in decline, who thinks they're so sophisticated because they have gay children, who work for corporate marketing ad departments, making commercials about race mixing and lesbian anniversaries, they think they're going to defeat ISIS through their ass cancer. They think their ass cancer is going to save them from that bomb. And through this analogy, we can pinpoint the mindset that people like Gavin McInnes and Milo Yiannopoulos have. They queer off with each other in public and protest, which is even more pathetic than lighting your building in the colors of the flag of the victim country. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Christian response to all this stuff. Interesting that a Hispanic preacher is the only one who had a lucid response to all of this, who had a correct response to all of this. And there's something very important that people afraid of Muslims and ISIS do not understand. They can set off bombs, they can blow up buildings, they can shoot down all the people they want, but it doesn't change a culture at the institutional level. And that is something we have allowed homosexuals to do, and they've done far more damage to the culture than any bomb ever could. And that's our fault. And it's interesting that every pro-white whines about disproportionate Jewish influence in the media, Yet the same thing applies to homosexuals, but they look the other way when it comes to that. But it's our fault that we allow these people to influence us. It's our fault they get into these institutions in the first place. Let's take the Catholic Church for an example. Back in the day, clueless whitey back in the 50s, whose culture was only tolerable because of a dead cat bounce brought on by another world war, has a queer son, doesn't know how to deal with him. Let's just send him to the seminary where they go and hang out with other young horny queers like themselves. I did an episode on this very subject some time ago. An episode about how seminaries, the seminaries back in the 70s is probably worse now. They're precursors to Pulse nightclub. These seminaries, for all intents and purposes, are gay nightclubs, are bathhouses, are public restrooms, so on, so on, so on. So you have clueless white parents sending their queer children to seminaries where they can go queer off under the plausible deniability of celibacy. And it's no wonder why the Catholic Church has such a problem with child abuse. And now we have the pederast's Pope Bergoglio, promoting sodomy through the Catholic Church, not just within the church, but throughout the rest of the world. And yeah, I am going there. You can't make me forget about the gay rights platform, the original one, talking about the abolishment of age of consent laws, how NAMBLA marched hand in hand with the brave warriors of the gay movement back in its early stages. And how every homosexual seems to have a story about how they were molested as a 13, 14-year-old, or how they were the predator. Don't think I forgot about that one, Milo. I heard all about your little patty cake session with the amazing atheist. But hey, when you do it, it's good. It's good for the movement. But when those backwards Muslim savages do it with their man-boy love vacations in Afghanistan, we're like, those dirty fucking savages, oh my god. So you know what? There you go. There's a reason why I say what I say. When I say the line, it's okay if white people do it sarcastically, this is where it's coming from. And there you see it. The impulse of moral relativism, so prevalent in the right wing, so prevalent in the left wing, so prevalent in, well, you know. But you see, it's through white American moral apathy that they send their kids off, their pervert children off, to be eventual leaders, linchpins of their community. And we know how megalomaniacal the sodomite psyche is. So they use their power to get close to these children because they can. People trust them. And you can't tell me this doesn't happen. We read a story from, I believe, the New York Post, or one of those rags, is a story about a queer priest, his ass buddy, and something about toilet slavery, and how they used the church's thrift store for their own financial gain. So homosexuals have infiltrated the priesthood, and they have for quite some time, as reflected by the amount of child abuse cases within the Catholic Church. Funny how they're almost always little boys. Interesting. It reminds me of the Jerry Sandusky case, where people are like, oh, it's just power. It's about power. Except for the part where he comes, right? But yeah, Jerry Sandusky, like William Burroughs, had a beard for a wife. And look how he treated her. Just like how William Burroughs treated his wife. He killed her. But I guess at least Jerry Sandusky didn't kill his wife. He just fucked a bunch of little boys behind her back. Guy's a defensive coordinator, highly paid coach for one of the best college football programs of that time. And you're telling me he didn't have enough power? He didn't have enough power process satisfaction, so he had to rape kids. Okay. Yeah, I believe that. Or maybe their psyche, the psyche of these people, is that of a megalomaniac. They crave power. They hate breeders. They admit this themselves. And yet you're like, well, they're our allies now because we have a common victim, real or imagined. And it's mostly imagined. But really, the common aggressor, they're both victims of the same thing. I think that's just an excuse for them to come out of the closet, so to speak. I've said for a long time, the internet right-wing intelligentsia, the Twitterati, mostly homosexuals. They talk about making white babies. If they were really that concerned about it, they'd go do it. They'd be raising their kids, but they don't. Which I guess is why they find such solidarity with the gay community. They're both demographic dead ends. But going back to the point about institutions, a bomb doesn't change the structure of the institution. A bomb doesn't use it for its own devices. That can only happen through social manipulation, cultural manipulation. And we let it happen because we have no imagination. Geez, these people, they use their ability to give life and direct it towards that which gives none. And we don't think to ourselves, they might be messed up in other ways too. I mean, this is bad enough on its own, but this is probably spreading to other parts of their psyche. We don't come to that conclusion because we're slaves to what society calls logical fallacies. That's a straw man. That's a slippery slope. That's a no true Scotsman. But we have no imagination. We don't think to ourselves, these people are resentful because they can't do what we can do. I mean, we've left them alone and now they're asking for other things. They're like, just leave us alone. Quit entrapping us. We're just loving each other in public restrooms. It's no big deal. Okay, so we say, fine, we leave you alone. And then what? We want marriage too. Because they figure out that once they're left alone to give each other, whatever they give, they're miserable because they know they're using it wrong. So instead of fixing themselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to set aside my pride and say, you know what I'm doing is wrong. Enough is enough. They allow that thing that they wanted so much that makes them feel like what they think is God. They inflate their egos with it to the point where they can't see around it. They can't see anything else other than their own agenda, which is consequence-free cum. Except that they can't deal with the consequences within themselves. So that's why they rearrange society to placate themselves. They say, we need more acceptance. We're not happy. We're not satisfied until we're accepted by people. And we're going to keep putting them in ourselves in television advertising and movies and TV and politics. It never ends. And we don't say we're going to put a stop to it. We don't say we're going to put a stop to your madness, your sodomy. We're going to put a stop to this because you can't control yourself. We don't, and we allow them to take over our institutions. We allow them to rearrange society where men cosplay as girls, they pretend to be girls. Girls have penis envy. They enter sexual relationships with their dogs. Men stick their tongues down one another's throat, and that's considered protest against radical Islam. And these are just a few effects of what happens when you allow these people to subvert your institutions, repurpose them in their own perverse image, and even the most feral ISIS member, the biggest bomb they can get a hold of, could never damage and ruin our institutions as much as the other side in this false dichotomy has. The biggest bomb in the hands of the most radical Muslim could never turn away as many people from the light of God as the other side in this false dichotomy has. I don't know if I said this before, but I think I did sometime last year, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, this is something I've suspected would happen for a long time. World War III will be fought over gay rights. And go figure that it's the right wing leading the charge. So I have other stuff here. I have a folder full of nonsense to cover on this episode. I barely even scratched the surface and we're already pretty deep here. So this came from some idiot I mentioned earlier. It says, every gay charity should be shut down. They achieve nothing. Their only purpose is to finger wag and push left-wing politics that hurt gays, making excuses for Islam and contributing to the suffocation of gay culture and whining about trans pronouns. Fuck them. As you sow, so shall you reap. How could this have ever happened? People who are completely amoral, they don't give a shit about the immigrants coming into their nation? Oh, couldn't have seen that coming based on how they conduct themselves in their personal lives. But you know what? Don't worry. Us cis-het breeders will go fight on your behalf against ISIS. We'll go shake a stick at the hornet's nest that is the Middle East once again and fight another losing war for you. And you could stay back. Don't worry, you don't have to get your hands dirty. You are Europe's natural aristocracy after all, you homosexuals. So sit back, relax, play tonsil hockey with your Canadian hipster BFFs. To make a point against radical Islam, that's very effective protest. And feel free to molest some 14-year-old boys while we're gone. We always like that. We love the Grecian model. We show them how the Greeks did it. There's a lot to be learned, I'm sure. So I got some more bullshit coming through the pipeline here. You can't be moral if you're a corpse. Once again, enforcing this false dichotomy. Well, here's how I see it. All right, and here's yet another example of how whites don't understand that you do have a soul, and your soul has a life of its own, and that's why we call it the first death. So you see, if you don't have a moral compass, that indicates that your soul is dead. So you being a corpse or not is just a formality at this point. The only difference is you being an animated corpse and being a regular corpse. Being a regular corpse, I get it. You can't masturbate and eat Cheetos and watch hentai anymore. I understand radical Islam, ISIS, they're so evil for depriving you of these things, but that's how it is. You can't be moral if you're a corpse. This is the kind of backwards thinking that is our albatross. The idea of morality, the idea of values is that it's something that transcends temporal life. It's something that exists outside of time and space because it is true, because it is of God. You can't be moral if you're dead. Yeah, you know what? In a way, you are correct. But if somebody is God-fearing, somebody does all the right things for the right reasons and obeys God's law, that person will get into heaven where there will be plenty of morality. But this is a massive blind spot. This highlights the massive blind spot in the European psyche. We can't see our own souls. We can't understand that we have one. And we can't understand its purpose. But who knows, maybe I am talking to truly soulless people that God only put here to make an example out of. Maybe. I don't know. I'm a human. I don't think like God. And why God made soulless white people who would forever live in darkness, I don't understand. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's hard. Look at that documentary, The Gift, the documentary from which I included clips in my Orlando tribute video. That's where those clips came from. Excellent documentary called The Gift. It's about homosexuals who contract and spread HIV intentionally. You're going to tell me those people are alive? People who exist only to spread disease? Those who exist only to spread misery? You're telling me those people are alive? You see, it is conduct, morality that gives us life. It is not life that gives morality. If that were the case, like you think it is, single motherhood would be a great thing. It wouldn't be any different than a mom and a dad in the home. But Ravi Zacharias said this recently, and this is something I said on the Beklov's live stream that I was on. God made the home, man, woman, and child, before he made the church. And we want to have a homeland for our white people when we have no understanding of what the concept of home is. We think it's malleable. We think it's on the table. We think everything is negotiable because everything is political. You can compromise on anything because everything is political to us. And I imagine that single motherhood is the next thing we'll start rationalizing as a good thing, because I hear that Iceland is full of them. And, oh, look, they're raising effeminate lady boys, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. That's a part of their culture, and we shouldn't mess with that. That's the next thing. I have a bad feeling that's the next thing they're going to start rationalizing. I mean, they're already doing it by saying, like, oh, only 1 in 4 white people are born out of wedlock. Only 1 in 4. That's like 6% higher, 7% higher than what Hispanics are doing. Yeah, you're so much better. You see, when they say we have to put life before morality, what they're saying is that you're putting existence over morality. Do you think it's good enough to just simply exist within the temporal realm? And you love it, and that's why you're losing it. It troubles me, it grieves me, it disturbs me on the deepest level that those I share some genetic commonality with are completely soulless and have no desire to undo that. Man, I still have like 40 items left to talk about in my show folder for this week. I'm a gay man. Don't excuse an attack on my community as an excuse for Islamophobia. Well, no, didn't you hear? It's an attack on white culture. It's an attack on white culture. Yep, your portly gatekeepers, they said that. So, yeah, it's yours now. Thanks for proving me right once again. And this magical white girl I found on Twitter who said, LGBT saved my life with their brilliant dark humor and friendship. So they have dark friendship too. That makes sense. The world would be a cesspool without their presence. Hey, that's what your gatekeepers believe too. So let me read that comment again. I came across it, the one I read earlier, that says that I'm an anti-white cuck and I pretend that all degeneracy comes from white people and that most white people are degenerates. Well, yeah, I do believe that. 63% of people think that homosexual relationships are morally identical to that of heterosexual relationships. So yeah, I do believe that most Americans, white Americans, are they're either confused or lost or dead inside. And then this one, his entire channel is anti-white. I ignore who makes the degenerate whites act the way they do, and intentionally ignores any and all non-white degenerates. Let's use white people as an example. European civilization. We consider it the greatest civilization that has ever existed. So we've existed in a higher place. Our tribe, our ancestors, existed in this higher place, in their conduct, in their accomplishments, in everything. So we've established ourselves at one point in a higher place of being, in a morally superior place of being. We have established a state of being from which we can degenerate. Can you say the same thing about Africans? No. Their behavior is simply backwards. Let's give another example of people who were once civilized. Jews and Arabs in the Middle East, the cradle of civilization. They had some impressive accomplishments. Now look at what they're doing. Shitting on the faces of Instagram models for incredible sums of money, and Tel Aviv, often considered, again, one of the gayest cities in the world. So whites, Jews, Arabs existed in a higher place. They had souls at one point. I know it might be hard to believe for some of you, but they did. They did. So they have a place to degenerate from. So their backwards behavior is degenerate. But if some African tribesman engages in some bizarre backwards behavior, it's just that, bizarre and backwards, because he had no higher state to begin with. He hasn't achieved that yet. You could even make a case that American blacks are degenerate to some extent. American blacks have made many contributions to American culture, namely in music, blues, gospel, many influential musicians that have transcended tribal boundaries. Lots of God-fearing people who got married before they had babies. Now they confine themselves to the inner cities, have sex with their cousins. I hear all about it on Tommy Sotomayor's channel. They weren't engaging in this form of dysgenics without Whitey's social net. So this person is wrong on a number of levels. I do talk about non-white degeneracy, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make a point out of it because most white people, they don't get it. They're like, wow, that's really bad behavior. We should not mimic that. We just laugh at it and say, oh, we're so much better than them. I'm well aware of lesbianism in the black community. I'm well aware of it. But we ignore that part of them because we promote it ourselves. We don't like it when things are just a differently colored reflection of ourselves as seen in all these comments. It's funny, I watched a 50 Cent movie a long time ago, and I think it was a movie he made, and there was a scene in it where he kills 2 lesbians. And I think he had a lesbian mom, if I'm not mistaken, so a rap musician can identify a problem. Why can't we? So here's another one. It says, Common Filth is like Ghost from Graffiti Radio, except he doesn't smash cans, is far less entertaining, and promotes whites to blame ourselves for LGBT, Dindu, and Jewish-caused problems. I bet he sends money to the JIDF. No, actually, the JIDF sends money to me, as I talked about at the beginning of an episode not too long ago. I do not understand. I thought as white men we were supposed to take personal accountability for ourselves. But nah, it's easier to blame others and call everybody JIDF. That's solving a lot. Roe v. Wade, no-fault divorce, Immigration Act of 1965. No, that didn't happen under white people watch. No, they didn't elect all of those people that put that bill through. Nah. And the fixation on immigration highlights how high time preference whites can be. Because we saw, oh no, birth rates are declining slightly. So we hit the panic button and invite a bunch of people from locales we've colonized, so they're still pissed off about it. They have a culture of anti-Americanism. We're bringing them over here to not only express hostility, but to depress wages, to oversaturate the labor market. All because of profits. Got to keep them profit margins up. Labor costs. Got to keep labor costs down. And let's not forget the Immigration Act came right before the sexual revolution. So the seeds of moral apathy were already being sown in American society. It's fun and it feels good to blame others. It feels nice to pass off your mistakes onto somebody else. I understand it, but you can only escape the burden you are owed for so long. And this comment says, CF cannot follow the timeline. He blames education, he blames media, he sees where this cultural trash originates. He just won't follow through. He denying the spread of corruption and where it came from. You know, there's trash, right? You see the trash? Do you consume it or do you throw it away? We consume it. Again, it's a matter of which narrative do you want to sacrifice. Because if you don't sacrifice Jews are our biggest problem, you're also sacrificing the narrative of white supremacy, white agency, and white intelligence. The only difference between people like you and Afrocentrists who dislike somebody like Tommy Sotomayor, who say, pointing out the shortcomings of black people, pointing out black failure harms black people. The only difference between you and them, you have a slightly bigger vocabulary to better convince yourself of your own moral exoneration. And a more positive comment, why do you have animosity towards CF? You laugh at niggers for being niggers, but you hate it when people point out that some white people act like niggers as well. Instead of being angry at those white people for destroying your culture, you're angered at the person who pointed it out. How does that make any sense? Because you introduced it to our community and shit. It's your fault. But I could not have said this any better myself. So what do we have on the subreddit? r/the Donald Trump Reddit, banned me because I considered Milo Yiannopoulos to be an unfit babysitter for boys, or blood donor. The mods called me a nasty guy too, possibly because I added that anyone who thinks otherwise should seek help and not have any children. Something Voltaire. Something who rules. Something free speech. The alt-right really does like their faggots. Well, as I don't want to get into it, you can read the thread, but yeah, the gatekeepers of white culture have spoken, and I don't get it. You say we need to have more white babies, homeland for white people, yet you prioritize a demographic dead end that has subverted institutions built by European civilization. But hey, LGBT acceptance, that's an important part of white culture, and it's okay if white people do it. I find it funny that the same guy who says no white people socialism is perfectly fine with white people sodomy, but if he found out that Afghani Arabs are doing it, well, they're just a bunch of backward savages because, well, they aren't white, and if they were white, they'd be much more sophisticated in their man-boy rape. So it tells you where their priorities are and how serious they're being. This week, I had a whole show planned out about the website Stuff White People Like, which I think is one of the most important documents of our time, of our generation. And the right-wing thought leaders are showing themselves to be the heroes of the white race, are showing themselves to be nothing more than limp-wristed neo-Stuff White People Like people. Neo-swipples, which strangely enough are just as gay as neoconservatives. I haven't forgotten about Dick Cheney's, him. I haven't forgotten about his support of gay marriage because he has a lesbian daughter. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Woman hits boyfriend with car after learning he has HIV. I wonder if he browsed white culture forums too. And just to get this out of the way, because I don't think I mentioned this yet, I think the whole Orlando thing, I think there's a very strong possibility that there's a false flag into creating a false dichotomy between homos and terrorists. I haven't said one word about ISIS and everybody's like, you must want to convert to Islam. But I will say this, I've received far more death threats from homosexuals. I've received far more harassment from homosexuals than I ever have from Muslims. Every pastor who preaches righteousness, every man of Christ, could say the same thing. The only thing that gives me pause is when I hear radical Islamists slaughtering Christian girls in Egypt. That upsets me. But I'm not stupid enough to allow that to shift my focus away from those who we've allowed to subvert and destroy our most important institution. And I'm sorry to all the tubby fucks out there who yell at their wives for watching cable television that they pay for. Very sorry about this. I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say here, but a sodomite nightclub that hosts La Raza Night is not an important institution. Alright, question comment thread time on r/common filth if you'd like to participate. You may. I have a thread for every episode that I pin to the top of the subreddit, and anyone is free to participate. Hey CF, I want to keep this really short. When I went through an edgy atheist phase, I introduced one of my friends to the Degeneracy. He is my best friend and I feel guilty. I don't know how to show him. Yes, let this serve as a reminder of the horrible things that the youth do to each other. Look, you just got to be honest with them. You say, that thing that I encouraged you to do? Yeah, I was wrong, and you should stop. That's it. That's all you really can do. And hey there, I've been listening to your show for a good few months now. I really enjoy it. You say a lot of things that I can't put into words, and I feel like you can speak for me. Anyways, I have a few questions. You've probably been asked this before, but what was your inspiration for doing Common Filth Radio? What inspires you to keep doing this? Another thing on my mind that I want your input on, my situation with my family isn't the worst, but it's something to keep me up at night. I grew up a really innocent kid and figured my parents could stay together forever because I didn't really see anything wrong with their relationship, and I was really ignorant at the time and didn't see the problems they had. They fought a lot. They didn't split up officially till a year ago. My mom basically left the house one day, only came back 3 times to visit, and the rest was up to the court. Now I have to go to her house every weekend and have dinner with her, etc., etc. They were married for almost 20 years, and yeah, it still bothers me. The fact that they did get a divorce. I'm in my mid-teens, and I'm still trying to find ways to cope with it. Suggestions. Also, how do you feel about children with divorced parents and how it affects them? I don't know what tribe you belong to. So I'm not going to make any assumptions, but regardless, you speak English. You're pretty articulate, young person. Whether some people like it, whether some people don't, you do belong to the West. And we've been having this problem for a very, very, very long time. And we can't blame anybody for this one but ourselves. The fact that we lay down with people we don't love. It's only a physical infatuation. And something very powerful results from that, and that is human life. And that life that is a result of that fleeting feeling of infatuation, and not based on something eternal, not based on something that lasts, not based on something that is worked on, but it's just like, oh, it feels good, you look good, it's convenient. That's what children born into this situation, that's what they are to their parents. Lots of people freak out about miscegenation and how the kids that result from it's white genocide. Everybody freaks out about it. Yet they don't realize something that is far more prevalent, and that is children out of wedlock, children of divorced parents, children that are born of temporary feelings. These children are nothing more than a permanent reminder of temporary feelings, and the children that belong to these ephemeral relationships, these results of these fleeting feelings of lust, this harms the child. This threatens its identity more than anything else. This splits the child's loyalty in two more than anything else. And we view this as a human right. We view this as something that you need to do. It's an important life experience to so many people. Well, you need to get married once or twice, and it's unfathomable how we treat the institution of marriage, how we treat the most profound act any human could possibly engage in, and that is give life, create life. We treat it with the utmost carelessness, and we have for some time. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Roe v. Wade. How many people fought for their right to kill their infants? How many fought for their right to infanticide? And we can whine and wring our hands over blown up nightclubs and white identity all we want. But we are fundamentally broken. And this is a reflection of it. How we treat children. How we view relationships. How we view our relationships in relation to those children. Your parents were married for 20 years and they couldn't keep it together. They didn't want to keep it together. They didn't want to improve themselves and grow with each other for even your sake. Which goes to show you how much you really mean to them. And yours is a tale far more common than you'd think. And here's where I'd get into some stories about extended family, but I'm not gonna drag them through the mud. All I will say is that I'm familiar with it, not directly. I am not a product of this, thank God. So I unfortunately cannot give you any specific direction, because I don't know the road you're traveling right now. What I do have to offer you is prayer. Prayer that God will lead you upon the right path. So stay safe, stay sane, and you will be in my thoughts. Hey, CF, relatively new listener here, so this question may seem redundant. In one of your earlier episodes, before episode 5, I believe you claimed to have less of a problem with gays who keep their sexuality out of the limelight. Your tone also implied that such individuals garnered a degree of your respect for refusing to imbibe in their vile community. Do you still feel this way even after the escalating horrors of the LGBTQ bloc and their disgusting cohorts? Personally, sodomy is sodomy no matter how you sugarcoat it. Even if you blind just one fag's brown eye, you are contributing to the overall decline of the culture. The relatively minimal discussion of the act doesn't undermine the severity of said act. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And somebody brought up a really good point to me that we should focus on people who engage in promiscuity and all of this premarital sex, because it encourages men to maintain this adolescent outlook on life far too late in life, when they should be in the prime of their years, and they avoid that by acting like teenagers, acting like college students. And these are just the normal people. Think of all the weirdos out there who exist primarily on the internet, who all they do is watch porn. I'm convinced that that's where most of these homosexuals are coming from. It's these kids who grow up with the internet. They see some boobs, they masturbate to that for a while, they get bored with it, then they move on to the next extreme thing, next even more extreme thing, and then 5 years later, who knows what they're doing? I guess at that point, I make a new episode I have enough material to make a new episode of Tumblristas, or a new Tumblristas Raw collection. But that was a long time ago. I've talked to people, I've received death threats and other forms of harassment from certain people, and yeah, that has caused me to change my tune a little bit. All throughout last year, I was receiving messages from guys who were admitting to me that they were queering off. They were admitting to me that they felt sick and gross about the lives they were living, and I wouldn't have known about this unless they told me. So clearly it's doing some damage, because that damage that they did to themselves would exist regardless of whether they divulged that information to me through this medium I've constructed. And a lot of people tell me it's like this is like a modern confession. I've received a comment like that on more than one occasion, and I don't like to see it that way. But we have more comment here. No shit dick scum should be excused from ridicule and scorn. Honestly, any homo that refuses to stay celibate and renounce their entire sick community should be suitably criticized. I don't know, maybe that's a bit harsh. I guess the way folks on the right have been responding to Orlando just got me a bit heated. Well, what you have to understand about the vast majority of these people, they live very sad lives where all they have is cosplaying as a member of European Parliament, forming their little coalition government based on current events. So what good are they? They harass everybody, make white babies, yet they don't have any themselves. Again, they're demographic dead end, so maybe that's why they find so much solidarity with the natural aristocracy, as they put it. Fucking petty excuses on all sides. Anyway, just digging the content, some real swell shit, nigga. If this decline keeps up, you may see another convert in the pews. Well, thank you for listening. It's more than I can say for a lot of other people. The fact that you're going back that far and asking me about it now, it means you're engaged, unlike all of these other people who listen to like 3 minutes of what I do and start making angry posts on anonymous image boards about me. So, again, you have to listen. You have to listen. There's a lot I have to say that can't fit within a 140 character limit, which is why I do this show. But that goes to show you how the high time preference that these people have. Hi, Common Filth. How do you feel about your newfound role as a youth counselor and priest? It upsets me, to be honest with you, not the fact that young people listen to what I do. It's the fact that they feel like they have no one in their lives they can open up to about problems they're having. That's what really upsets me, and that's why I criticize white people the most, because that's who makes up my audience. White people are the ones creating these children that are seeking out somebody like me. Because I'm a straight shooter, I'm not like, well, nuance. Oh, well, some. Kids they just need to be put on a path. They need authority, they need boundaries, they need guidance. And it's mostly white kids who are sending this in to me. Who made them? White people. And what does this say about us? What does this say about the fact that we are letting the internet raise our children? And the reaction that people have to my criticisms of present day white culture, psyche, conduct. We refuse to acknowledge that we are creating generations upon generations of lost, lonely, confused people. And you said it. You're making a snarky comment about being a youth counselor and priest. I don't know. I'm just a guy with a microphone. This is my circumstance that I've become these things. But you see it too. And I see it too, and I'm interpreting it in a certain way. I think, wait, where are these kids coming from? Why do they need to be counseled? But if you explore why, if people get all pissy at you and call you anti-white, you're anti-white. No, it's not anti-white to create lost generations after lost generation after lost generation, because you have no interest in raising children or teaching them right from wrong. Nah, that's not anti-white. A guy reading messages he receives from people on the internet for a YouTube show, a guy who reads the news, that's anti-white. Pointing out who's doing what, that's anti-white. You know, I wouldn't give a shit if I wasn't white. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't. But the problem is, most whites don't care, and you're not going to convince them with funny Moon Man memes or Twitter banter. You're not. And I guess you're not going to convince them by telling them, hey, raise your kids, actions have consequences. There's a reason why these things are the way they are and the way they've always been. Nobody's convinced by anything other than their own rationalizations. What do you think of the 9/11 conspiracy stuff? I don't think about it much at all. Hey, CF, I'm astonished by the amount of Catholics who are attracted to your podcast. You must be doing something right. Well, I don't want to attract Bergoglios. That's the last thing I want to attract. Here's a quick question. Have you ever read about Father Damien of Molokai? He was a Belgian priest during the late 1800s who volunteered to help out the lepers at the colony of Molokai in Hawaii. Lepers were basically dumped there by their families and were neglected and left to die until Father Damien came along and gave hope to those people. What's your opinion on missionary work nowadays? Well, if missionary work reflects that, I think that is incredibly good. And I know some people who recently, just a few months ago, went on a mission trip. It was a week or two. I think it was between 1 and 2 weeks, maybe like 10 days. They went on a mission trip overseas, did a lot of good things there. I'll refrain from saying where they went to possibly protect their identities, but yeah, they did some really good things. And, you know, a lot of these strange Twitter people might not think it because they're doing nice things for non-white people, but those people are they're sick. But yeah, missionary work, I don't have a whole lot of opinion on it that I can state right now. But yeah, if it does good, it's good, and good needs to be done. Orlando thoughts now. Well, you got them. And I will say this: everything I said assumes that this is a this is a false flag, and even if it isn't, go with the pro-whites prioritize rather than saying like, whatever. And what does Trump get for saying like, oh, my LGBT brothers and sisters, you're my friends? What does he get? Pandering to a group of people that will never, ever vote for him. Even before this is like 2%. What's it going to go up to now? 6%? Wow. That was worth alienating people who actually have some standards about themselves. But what this whole cluster, has taught us is that some people have some really backwards, schizophrenic, and contradictory priorities. And that's what you get for cosplaying as your local congressman. That'll get you far. Hola, CF. Hola. You know what's funny? People accuse me of being a spick. Yet a couple weeks before that started happening, People were asking me, what do you like? People asking me on Twitter, what do you like? I said, I like those Mexican fruity drinks you get at the flea market and their grocery stores. I had no idea what they're called till somebody told me. I think they're called agua frescas. I think that's what they're called. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that until somebody told me. I just see them in the jugs. I'm like, hey, those things taste good. And you get some. But anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. After a few months of unemployment, I got a job at a local business doing general labor. Much to my dismay, the person I work with closest is a walking Tumblristas episode. He, she, it, born female, describes themselves as a queer punk anarchist. And while they were in college, they were a women's studies major. Go figure, right? And I got him a job doing general labor. It took him far. And I'll take the opportunity to say this. I understand there are a lot of decent and disenfranchised members of the working class, but for every one of them, there's one of these, what you're describing, a queer punk anarchist women's studies major. They also occupy our working class. And I really think it's like a 1-to-1 ratio between decent people and these people. From our conversations, it's already completely obvious why she is the way she is. Fuck you, Mom and Dad. And it is certainly an exercise in restraint to not start dropping, for lack of a better term, red pills. There's a better term. While we are conversing. The business is owned by my friend, and I'm not trying to get them sued or myself fired for discrimination. Well, there's your incentive to keep it together, I guess. It's been pretty easy to hide my power level because the months in a basement watching your videos have taught me how to speak her language. This might sound like heresy, but I'm quite content to keep my mouth shut because, quite frankly, I need the money. You know, I can't blame you, and I'm not gonna disparage you for not doing otherwise. My question: what would you do if you found yourself in this situation? My problem is that I'm nice to people over the short term. But the more I'm exposed to them, save for probably one person on the planet, I can't help but get annoyed with them. It's a very, very bad character trait, I know. Thanks and God bless. P.S. You were right. It isn't just on the internet that these people exist. They're just as insufferable, if not more so, in real life. Well, the only people that say that this is just an internet thing are people that organize their meetups along ideological lines. So, yeah, and they interact almost exclusively with each other on the internet. So, yeah. Hey, CF, two-parter here, comment and a question. I noticed that during Radio Show 93, you mentioned the moment you realized that the alt-right types are essentially doomed to propagate the same shit as leftists. Specifically that they were okay with a mother having her baby smoke a cigarette or whatever because it would kill the baby off sooner. This was commendable in their minds as the baby was black. I had a similar experience when I read a Radix Journal article titled The Pro-Life Temptation Calling for the Abortion of Black and Brown Babies. And so long as they were black and brown, abortion was a-okay. I find it revolting how many in the alt-right have taken to viewing religion and morality as being a utilitarian means to a political ends. Yeah, it's essentially, it's good for thee, but not for me. They don't want to live it, they just want other people to do their bidding. Because they view themselves as an elite. They think like, oh, I can't sweat and raise children. No, you have to do it. You have to do it. Ironically, in doing so, they are attempting to prove Marx's assertion about religion being the opiate of the masses true. This false criticism leveled against Christian society, which was blasphemous on top of being deceitful, is now being embraced as if becoming the thing your enemy believes you to be, and doing the thing your enemy expects is the proper course of action. Basic military thinking, whether it be taken from Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, or Napoleon's military maxims, dictates that you do the opposite of what your enemy wants and expects. I find it baffling that the vocal majority, or minority, of the alt-right finds this course acceptable, morality aside, even from a Machiavellian standpoint. It's like they're committed to lose. And 2, have you by chance read Fulton J. Sheen's Life of Christ? I have not, unfortunately, but I do see your recommendation here. I'm reading 2 books at the same time right now, and it's hard to get through them when I'm spending most of my time driving or doing something related to the channel here. So, yeah, no books right now, but I'll file it. I have the comment thread. I could go back to it. But I will read your comment. Fulton J. Sheen's Life of Christ. It's an incredibly lucid and powerful exegesis on the details of Christ's life and the broader implications of what our Lord was doing, teaching, and saying. It reads almost as a series of meditations on the various stages and relationships in the life of our Lord. I would strongly recommend it if you have not read it yet, or if you're crunched for time, you can look up a few Fulton Sheen videos on YouTube to get the gist of his thinking. False compassion and how to psychoanalyze yourself are pretty good ones. It's hard to believe that at one time in this country, a bishop speaking in part extemporaneously for 30 minutes about God, religion, and morality used to garner 10 million viewers a night and win Emmys. Today, I can hardly get anyone to talk about God without getting uncomfortable stares from most people, friends included. Yeah, and I can't talk about God without people whining at me, without people getting incredibly upset. And they think they have license to do it because I don't block my comment section. And it's always only one type of people. And it's never mind. Common Filth, I understand you put yourself through a lot in order to host this show. Remember to take a break when you need it and look for the light. Stay strong. On to my next question. Well, I'll try to do that. As someone who was raised by a single parent, and I know you'll make a note of that, I was never taught a number of important life lessons. This led me down a path I regret. I'm just pausing for effect here. After a year of what was essentially day after day hedonism, something changed that made me vow to reform my life and embrace spirituality. What worries me is my motivation. And before I get into the motivate, you have three more paragraphs here. Before I get into that, I'm pausing for effect to let people know this isn't just something on a spreadsheet. These are lives. These are living, breathing people who suffer, who have to live with decisions beyond their control. It's not just a number. It's not politics. While I was debased, I had a friend who was very religious. She had something I had never seen, a sturdy set of values and devotion to what you'd call traditional Christianity. I ended up asking her out and was naturally turned down. She wouldn't be comfortable dating anyone who is not a Christian. That, and I know I'm disgusted by the sick party lifestyle I used to lead. I'm not sure if this is what spurred me to change, and I hope it isn't, because it would be a foundation built on the body rather than the spirit. I don't want to be a Christian just because some part of me wants a girl I might corrupt, but I do still like her. I've avoided directly reading the Word of God for fear of changing its meaning. Modern Christianity, quote-unquote Christianity, is perverted enough without my contribution. I want to be right. How do I be sure that I'm doing this for the right reasons, or how can I make it the right reason? You're only a man, yet you've offered some guiding points I don't think I could have come upon my own. Though I disagree with a number of your arguments and what seems to be the greater part of your listeners' culture, you're one of very few moral guiding rocks in my life. I would greatly appreciate a pointer to help find my way, if you have one. Again, know that people appreciate what you do. Don't take too much on board and be careful not to let seeds of sin grow in the void you let in. You saw it. You said it yourself. You saw something you'd never seen. And that is a woman who does it right. Who carries herself like a woman. Who has let the right things into her heart. And she's walking the righteous path. You saw it. God speaks to us through circumstance. I don't think he introduced that girl into your life by accident. And you know what? You're right. You don't want to corrupt that. And in the meantime, while you let God work through you, She might move on. She'll find somebody else that might be, but that shouldn't be your priority. You see, you're mistaking a catalyst for a foundation. You want to be a godly person because you've seen what a godly woman looks like. And you want something like that in your life, and the only way to get that is to live righteously. And that's going to take a while. There'll be some things you don't understand, some things you misinterpret, but don't get too caught up on that. You need to read it, absorb it, reflect on it. Just read it. It's there. It's not going to bite you. And if you have concerns with how you're interpreting things, feel free to ask a question. I have a lot of good people on the subreddit, for one, but in real life, surround yourself with not believers, but obeyers of God's law. Because there's a lot of people who believe, but they don't obey. They don't live it. They don't walk the walk. And you got to develop your sense of intuition to find that out. But if you see LGBT affirming congregation anywhere in the church's description, just cross it off the list immediately and move on. But thank you for the question. Thank you for the comment. Hey CF, I feel kind of like a fool. In your more recent shows, I've noticed you ragging on the alt-right pretty hard. Not that it's a bad thing, as your criticisms are often legitimate. I heard you always going on about how much the right loves homosexuals and how paused it is. Well, I didn't quite believe you since I have never personally seen it. I haven't seen any alt-right, white nationalist, etc. sites do it. And I've been around this kind of circle a while, other than the occasional Milo worshippers, but I've only seen a handful of those, and it's mainly by Republican normies. Well, today you have me fully convinced, as I just saw a tweet from Richard Spencer that said, homosexuality seems to be a kind of last stand of implicit white identity. And I've even seen some people come out of the woodwork saying things like, if you hate gays, you are an anti-white Muslim, and homophobia has no place on the right. And apparently sodomy has a place in the West. You know, that's not a demographic dead end or anything. Nah. Look, you gotta understand, again, they all think they're forming their little coalition government, and they think they're being real Machiavellian, but really, they're cosplaying. So what you have to look at is what they allow in their personal lives, and most of these people go out of their way to make friends with the worst kind of hedonists you could imagine. And I suppose that's because the personal eventually leads to the political, which is why so many homosexuals are left-wingers. Why they vote for left-wing policies en masse. Like I said, people who are morally apathetic, who use their ability to give life in a perverse way, that doesn't bleed over into other stupid ideas. That doesn't cause them to have other stupid ideas. It's like these people are really naive, and it just goes to show you how little they understand the human condition, how little they understand dysfunction. So, look, I don't want to be right about these people, but that's how it is. I call it as I see it. That's how you make good audio. That's how you make a good show. Hey CF, sorry if this has been answered somewhere obscure like the face reveal, but you once said that a white nationalist almost got you killed, and if that's not too doxy a story, could you regale us with it? No, I don't want to, because it's really just stupid. Other than that, no questions really. Just wanted to say that what I thought was hyperbole on your part has hit home to me after the Orlando Commandos one-man buck-chasing party. Again, second consecutive comment here. You think I'm the only one that sees this? You think I'm making this shit up? Do these people want to convert to Islam and join ISIS too? This is so stupid. Gays really are the top of the social pyramid, even higher than Jews or non-whites or whoever else has privilege, real or imagined. People who come out with OTT stuff about racial and religious groups won't countenance any criticism of sodomy and react with religious hyperventilation. Literally any time I said anything homophobic in the last few days, even on 4chan, on other 4chan boards than Poll, I got people telling me directly they hated me because I was a homophobe for things as trivial in one case as guessing that a natural aristocrat in a TV show would die. Then on an MMO, the breeze and the shit was being shot, and for telling the Muslim walks into a bar joke, 2 different faggots or faggot sympathizers started screaming at me, kicked me, and sent me PMs saying they'd get me banned from the game for sick hate speech. And this is who the right wing is currently arranging themselves to, they're arranging the deck chairs to make room for these types of people. And with the histrionic reaction to the Orlando shootings, it's not surprising. They're all a bunch of neurotics. They all find solidarity with one another. That's not an out-of-the-ordinary story to you or many of your listeners who have more experience with these kind of people. But I just want to chime in and say that top of the social hierarchy and millennial religion are not memes. And even in as a petty thing as an MMO game, these people will harass you and try to financially damage you for speech that's not obsequiously reverent enough to the facts. Yeah, I'm being accused of being a Muslim convert for not shedding enough tears over a bunch of dead homosexual Latinos. Isn't that interesting? Whether enough people know it or not, you're public enemy number 1 to these people, CF, and I wish you good luck and safety. Yes, another event that showcased the religious hyperventilation of Sodomites at having one of their temples violated is when the British Marxist twink Owen Jones threw a tantrum and walked off Sky News because the hosts surprisingly wanted to talk about the nature of the attack as an Islamic attack, whereas he wanted to make it all about the homosexuals and homophobia. Again, good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you very much, and thank you for sending this to me. Again, anybody who has their eyes open, anybody who does not personally benefit from the current order of the social hierarchy, the current structure, can see this. Anybody who doesn't go out of their way to make friends with these people sees this. They call me the closeted homosexual when they're going out of their way to make friends with these people. And this is a huge reason why the internet right-wing intelligentsia defends them. Because they're my friends. We share memes with each other. Also, a couple of other things. So you'd really have to be an idiot not to see it, or you benefit from it. I mean, I've seen very few examples beyond those 2 categories. CF, I'm a recent listener of your podcasts, and I'm very appreciative of the time you've taken to dispense your wisdom. I have a question on a topic I don't think you've touched on before, but forgive me if I have missed it. Debt. I do odd jobs for extra money over the internet and have been doing that for work with a computer I found to be reliable over the last 7 or so years, but lately the nature of that work has been changing and the computer itself is starting to age. So I've been thinking about upgrading it so I can stay productive and ahead of the curve. Do I have a pile? I do have a pile of savings. Do I? I do. That changes a lot, the ordering of that. I do have a pile of savings I could just use to outright buy what I need and ensure I have this extra income moving forward, but a conversation with a friend led me to consider financing the new machine instead. What are your thoughts on debt? Would doing this to secure an irregular but stable income be a good idea? Or should I just go ahead and use my own savings? I was thinking that I could hold on to the savings in case I need it in the future and just eat the cost of the repayments over time, and the finance companies I've talked to offered me a decent payment protection program, even if the very worst happens, but I do know there are some biblical concerns, so maybe I'm just endangering myself for no good reason. Again, thanks for your time. You are a light in the darkness. And you got a response here, which is pretty close to what I was going to give. They said, there's good debt and bad debt. If you loan to go on vacation, that would be bad debt. You'd have no extra money to pay your bill. That's different than let's just say getting a pickup truck for a landscaping business. You are investing in yourself. Just get the computer if you can make your money back. Yeah, that's what I would say. And you have to factor in, well, what if something goes wrong with my computer pretty soon? You have to factor in how much money you would lose by the lack of work you're doing. You have to figure out whether the cost of downtime is less than the cost of financing a new computer for yourself. And this sounds like something you're going to have to do eventually, getting a new computer. So, yeah, like the commenter said, 7 7/8. there is good debt and bad debt. This isn't bad debt, you can pay it back. It's a business expense. Hi CF, I remember writing something really long involving Romans 1 before. So this is my second time writing here, so hi again. How's it going? I noticed people have been suggesting Pastor Steven Anderson. I just want to say that he is a very controversial pastor. I noticed a comment you got giving you that interview with Dr. James White. I don't think he refused to answer questions like a child. I don't know, maybe there was more to the videos that I didn't see. My own suggestion is that you watch him for yourself before making a conclusion about him. By watch, I don't mean the clips of him on the news or anything. Not to say you shouldn't watch them, I'm just saying don't make up your mind about him from only that. I'm saying watch some of his sermons. People really hate the guy, but honestly, I think he speaks the truth, and he speaks it unforgivingly. He gets screechy and very intense when he's preaching and gets passionate. I guess passionate is the right word. It's a little annoying, but when you overlook it, it's really not that bad. He also talks a lot about revelations. His views actually differ from yours because he does believe in a rapture, but not a pre-tribulation one. And I'd like to get your opinion on what he has to say. It's really whatever, but on your free time, maybe you could check him out. A lot of people suggest it, and a lot of people say he's like a meme pastor, which I don't know what that means. I guess that means some degree of insincerity. I'm just guessing there, but I did see the video of his reaction, which I thought was, he's just like, ooh, 50 dead pedophiles. He could have been a bit more subtle about that. Especially on a platform like YouTube, where you need a little bit of subtlety to get things past people. And you got to reply to it. Right, Pastor Anderson speaks the truth. That's why he lied to Jews about who he was in order to film them, and then recut their statements to work against them. A man that also says if you're not inspired by the King James Bible, then you're not a real Christian like those Mary worshiping Catholics. What a great shepherd. Jesus would be proud. Look, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on this guy. People suggest it to me all the time because he's out there. People find some commonality. I don't know why, but between what I do and what he does. So look, I don't like these like have you heard of, have you watched, you should watch, because these are for the show, right? And I don't come here and click on stuff unless I have it planned. I don't like to do that. So, but look, I understand I should look at it to give my opinion on him so people would stop asking me about it, but okay, whatever. Next, hello CF, thank you for taking the time to read this. I wanted to address the first part of this comment to a person who wrote in last time asking if he should look at college as job training. I wanted to quell his fears about college, as well as those of your other listeners. Just for a little background on myself, I am a STEM major attending a STEM college. The STEM fields are not nearly as inundated with radical hedonists as many of the other departments are. Even better, many of the STEM classes do not have time for teachers or students to go on rants about their personal social agendas. Most of the students that I work with regularly are fairly conservative ex-military types in their mid-20s to early 30s looking to get a job in the engineering and physics fields. The outlook people need to have when studying in the STEM fields is that this is going to give me the opportunity to learn about my subject of interest, networking opportunities with others in my field, which is key, as well as research opportunities with experts. That is probably why so many of the aforementioned students are present to begin with, as it does not coddle you. Anyway, what I wanted to ask you is what your opinion, if you have one, is on the term regressive left. I know that you've said in the past, as well as fairly recently, that you consider yourself apolitical. My reason for asking this question is not a political one, but rather if you think that people who use it are trying to shift blame away from themselves. Often I've seen people using it to express the idea that the acceleration of degeneracy and hostility that we are witnessing today is due to a small group of vocal Tumblrites, aka the regressive left. This bothers me because it clears people who shout regressive leftists from their part in all of this. These are the same people that not even 3 years ago laughed at the idea of a war on Christmas. Yeah, and they also laugh at those evil, bigoted creationists back in 2007, those evil fundamentalists, which I've never met before. I really don't know where these people are coming from. I guess it's too much Daily Show with Jon Stewart syndrome. How many young people have based their worldview on that? And there's more to your comment, which I will resume reading now. Called those against affirmative action racist, and called people who did not approve of LGBT culture being forced in our faces homophobes. Yeah, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The culture has changed, so it makes them seem more moderate and tolerable by comparison. Well, you know what? I haven't forgotten about how they used to be. I'm not that stupid, unlike everybody else who uses the term. But there's more comment. Reading it now. Now that they have had a change of heart, they want to pretend that this never happened. It is not that I don't want to forgive them for being stupid in the past. Well, they're still being stupid. They just look better by comparison. We all have been at one point or another. I just want them to own up to their part in all of this. Regardless, thank you and keep up the good work. There is a commonality among all the people you're talking about here. The right, the left, people who use the term regressive left. They don't actually disagree with social justice. They don't disagree with the totalitarian nature of the homosexual psyche. Every one of these people, left, right, people who are whining about the regressive left, they are people coping and coping poorly with their dying civilization. Every one of these people, left, right, whatever, are afflicted with the same psychological maladies that are currently affecting those of European stock. And they don't realize what's wrong with them. Again, as I said earlier in the episode, how can you have an identity if your entire identity is relative to the situation? If your entire identity is filtered through situational ethics and politics, you have no idea who you are. We're a bunch of amnesiacs. We see something worse coming along and we discard every bit of information we had about ourselves, about the world around us. We're constantly rewriting ourselves. And when you look at the Orlando bullshit, you could see this in action. Are we going to pretend that those that engage in sodomy are far more likely to molest children? Are we going to ignore the fact that people who engage in sodomy are far more likely to commit suicide? Are we going to forget that they're far more likely to abuse methamphetamine? I mean, any way you slice it, they're putting a strain on our resources. There is no place for this in civilized society. By saying, oh, we need to tolerate it, and this is white culture, and this is proof that nobody has any idea what they're doing, what they're saying. They're constantly looking over at the person next to them for their next cue. So the term regressive left is stupid because their definition of progress is stupid and backwards. They think behaving like a sub-animal is preferable. They think that's a sign that we're progressive and we're capable. They don't want anything to get in the way of their pleasure, whatever that may be. Hey CF, stop taking the Lord's name in vain, you faggot. Saying fuck is tolerable, but breaking the second commandment is not. Alright? Hey CF, I've submitted several questions before, including the germ theory thing, but this week is more personal. Background, I'm 18 years old, a recent high school graduate, and was raised Catholic. I'm moderately autistic, diagnosed by a medical professional at age 3. You and so many others. It is a product of the times. It's a new thing because we're doing all sorts of crazy stuff to ourselves. We're having kids too late. We're taking all of these strange pharmaceuticals, all of these genetically modified poisons we're putting into our body. Strange times, so don't feel too bad about it. I agree with most of what you posit. Hee hee, funny pun. about the state of Western civilization and its road to ruin by way of moral apathy. But I cannot personally accept faith. Every time my brain attempts to rationalize Christianity, it always ends up at some sort of contradiction or flawed conclusion that I, or any sort of spiritual authority, can't accept. I remember you saying something about there being very few people who have no religious impulse. And not to be edgy or anything, but I feel like one of those people. What are your thoughts? Well, you are 18. I wasn't terribly religious myself at age 18. I didn't quite understand it. But as you live life, as you nurture that part of yourself and keep an open heart about it, think to yourself, maybe all those books that those old Jewish guys assembled back in the day, maybe they knew some stuff. I mean, think about it like this. Christ told his apostles, go out and spread my word, go out to all corners of the earth, go spread it, go spread my message, teach my teachings, go do it. And they did. Now let's put this into context. This is a world that they live in before we knew anything about it around us. Where you were born, you knew maybe a certain limited radius you knew about the world, but beyond that, completely foreign. You have no idea what's out there. You don't know how long you're going to have to travel, who you're going to cross paths with on your way. You don't know if where you're going, they have cannibals there, spear chuckers, whatever, any danger, you name it. You don't know what's out there, and you have this all in your mind, like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But this is what the earliest members of the church did. And why did they do it? Why were they motivated? They looked in Christ's eyes. They saw what he did. They followed him around. They rubbed shoulders with him. They had conversations with him. They watched him perform miracles. They watched him do the impossible. And Christ told them, go out into that big, scary world that you know nothing about and preach. Preach my word. Now, these people would know better than anybody else if this Christ fella was bullshitting them. And you're not going to go out into that great unknown for a bullshitter, but that's what they did. Because they experienced firsthand the authenticity of what Christ did, of what Christ said. I've heard that the apocalyptic aspects of the book of Revelations is primarily symbolism regarding the fall of Rome. What do you think in terms of this and the proposition that some of the elements can be extended to the fall of any other degrading society such as America? Do you interpret those aspects as literal and or descriptive of the future, or a telling of the fall of Rome / any great society? I don't know. Revelations is a difficult book to read into. I just don't like it when people use it to make an ass out of themselves, saying, the world's gonna end on this day. We don't know that. We can't know that. We don't have the same sense of time as God does. But it's a cool book. It's a unique book. Lots of stunning imagery. Hey, CF, what is your opinion on head coverings? I don't have one. I don't have one. Do you think Christian women should wear them? Whenever I'm out in public, I see these self-proclaimed Christian women always dressed no better than whores, but Muslim women at least know how to be modest. Well, I don't know where you live or where these people are coming from, but no Christian women I know dress like whores. And now we have emails. Hi, CF. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for what you do. I was raised in a secular family and never really went to church, even though most of my cousins and grandparents are religious. About 2 or 3 years ago, I started watching a lot of YouTube, which has since then led to the discovery of your channel about 2 weeks ago. Ironically, this all started with watching The Amazing Atheist, and I was in the suggested videos or the recommended videos. I made your way into the recommended algorithm. Man, that's kind of surprising. Right away, I started noticing that what you say seems to be very accurate. It's scary how correct you've been about the degeneracy of the alt-right, and your statement about today's sarcasm and irony being tomorrow's sincerity. Every day now, it seems like more and more of what you say and quote from the Bible is becoming true before me, and it's absolutely crazy. I remember hearing so many arguments about religion, and although there's just so much that seems off about it, I'm really starting to believe that people do need the morality and teachings of what you stand for. I really appreciate your channel and your ability to stand up against the degeneracy of all sides. I hope this doesn't sound cheap coming from me, but God bless you, sir. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to focus on the part of your email that addresses the problem of irony and sarcasm. Irony and sarcasm, if it has a target, is incredibly effective. It's funny, it's insightful, and it does some good. But irony and sarcasm, for its own sake, if it doesn't have a target, if you're doing something and you're like, oh, isn't this funny that I'm doing this? Or isn't this strange that I'm doing this, without no target, no point to it? Yeah, you're going to end up believing it and practicing it yourself with the utmost sincerity. I think when people use irony, when it comes to whatever subject it is, whatever weird thing they're into, that's their way of coping with the shame they feel for liking this dysfunctional thing they like. So they use the irony as a self-defense mechanism, as if to say, look, I'm making fun of myself, so don't make fun of me. This is why they get very upset when you point to examples of how they're actually being sincere, how they actually believe what they're saying. Like when I was making fun of meme worshippers on an episode of Tumblristas a few weeks back. They got so mad at me for saying, look, these people do actually, in all sincerity, worship cartoon frogs and anime girls. And they type all these furious messages at me, telling me it's just banter, you're autistic, oh my god, you're a Christ cuck, you're this, you're that. If it's just banter, if it's not serious, why are you getting so angry about it? And that's all I have to say. Their hearts reveal themselves. Once you call that demon out by its correct name, it tends to reveal itself. More emails. Again, you can reach me at commonfilth@commonfilth.com if you don't want to use the public Reddit thread. Anyway, I wanted to convey some elements of this story which I am sure other followers have shared with you already. I want to share with you the 3 key elements of this atrocity, my beloved brother in Christ. And this is... you'll know what this is talking about. In Orlando, Florida, a Muslim who identified himself with the Islamic State in Iraq being the region where millions of our brothers and sisters in Christ endured genocide by ISIS, took an assault weapon and a handgun to a flagrant homosexual nightclub. 50 were butchered, 53 are hospitalized, and 1 police officer was shot in the head before the jihadi Filth was gunned down. 50 dead, 53 hospitalized. The nightclub reportedly had, and likely often does hold, upwards of 300 degenerate perverts. These are people who, in the majority, are the spitting image of a proud and indulgent sinner. I have no doubt that a good number of those who died, those who are hospitalized, and those who yet live unscathed are archetypical bareback bottom paws pigs. Do we celebrate their massacre? No. We celebrate the mercy of God on even those who make themselves abominations like the things they love. Hosea 9:10, Proverbs 3:32. Yet the godless will cry, how can God let this happen? Yet all who live should ask in awe, how merciful are you, O Lord, that out of 300 abominable people, you only let 100 be wounded and only 50 of them die? Note that the police officer who was shot in the head with but an eye injury. The spiritually dead will say, the Kevlar helmet saved him, but we all know that such a helmet is not death-proof. Nothing truly is. Only an inch lower and he would be dead. This is why these people are so miserable. Everything hinges on just one thing. Everything hinges on just, oh, if this wasn't there, he wouldn't be here. Oh my God. And they can point to examples in their life where if it wasn't for just this one thing, I wouldn't be here. Not realizing who's pulling the strings. Only an inch lower and he would be dead. Only some feet closer and he would be dead. God showed his mercy to that police officer and through him showed his mercy to the world. Let's also pray for the officer's salvation as well. Mercy of God is shown manifold in this atrocity even to those prideful sodomites. Perhaps even a few or even one among their number will consider this and repent to the merciful Lord, who not only struck 1/3 of who he could have, but in doing so also caused the other Sodomites to cease their self-destructive addiction, even only for a single night. Let us pray they reflect on this in turn, and let us celebrate God's mercy. Let's also pray for the officer's salvation as well. Muslim jihadi and sodomite nightclub. Did you know that Canada legalized bestiality? A story we read on this show not too long ago. Yes. It's no coincidence that the two untouchable subjects of the political realm today, homosexuality and Islam, clashed in a single night with bloody ends. I'm sure Canada is next. Know this, brother, that God does not stand with jihadi filth, just as he never stood with Assyria. But the Lord used Assyria to punish Israel in judgment for their idolatry. Idolatry being meme magic, keck, boy pussy, racial superiority, empty sacrifices, and all their wickedness. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire, strangers devour your land in your presence, and it is desolate as overthrown by strangers. Isaiah 1:7. When you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Isaiah 1:15. God is speaking directly here in his own voice. How faithful the city has become a harlot. It was full of justice, righteous lodged in it, but now murderers. Isaiah 1:21. This is the judgment of God on Israel for their wickedness. Does it sound familiar? How cold we feel in our spine when we read Isaiah 1:15 and look at the Islamic invasion in Europe and the jihadi attacks on all the Western nations, which have come to revile the Lord and revel in depravity. Can even the blind now see the storm of God's judgment on our nations? I wonder if they at least hear the coming thunder, because you and I both know that this is only the beginning. As for the righteousness of God, it is seen in both his judgment and mercy here. As we read, spoken by God's own voice, "Come now, and let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured by the sword. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." Isaiah 1:18-20. Even during the judgment of God, the people of the nation he strikes are called to repent, to reason with God. If we turn, then we will be cleansed of our crimson sins and spared from wrath. But if we do not, then we will be destroyed. Will God allow his children to suffer? Only to an extent, only inasmuch as God sees fit for them to overcome for his glory with his help. But the suffering of the wicked, the rebellious, the disobedient will be the whole suffering of the nation, hopeless, without aid, and unto extermination. And what of the sword which God wields against the nations which spurn him? Will God delight in the jihadis who raped and butcher his children, and even the godless? No, but their time will come after. Therefore it shall come to pass when the Lord has performed all his work on Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, that he will say, I will punish the fruit of the arrogant heart of the king of Assyria, and the glory of his haughty looks. Isaiah 10:12. Shall the axe boast itself against him who chops with it? Or shall the saw exalt itself against him who saws with it? As if a rod could wield itself against those who lift it up, or as if a staff could lift it up, as if it were like wood. Therefore, the Lord of hosts, will send leanness among his fat ones, his being king of Assyria's. And under his glory he will kindle a burning fire, and it will consume the glory of his forest and of his fruitful field, both soul and body, and they will be as when a sick man wastes away. Isaiah 10:15-16 and 18. Assyria and its king was used as a mere tool of punishment by God against Israel, as a threshing hook to cut down the rotten ones, while the Lord preserved for himself a remnant of their number, the faithful ones who repented and turned to him as their living stronghold and king. God used the wicked Assyria like an axe, nothing more. And just as the king of Assyria boasted in his wicked quote-unquote triumph, God vowed in his righteous vengeance to exact justice against the wicked Assyrian king and people. Why? Because he never stood alongside wickedness, merely using the wickedness as a means of conveying his judgment. That jihadi Muslim who massacred those homosexuals in that nightclub was merely a tool. He followed through with his wicked scheme, and God just used him as one of many signs of his judgment. When he had finished his deed, God then exacted judgment on him, having him shot to death by police, whom God protected and ultimately sentenced to eternal damnation upon death. God did this in full view of the world to convey his righteousness. Mercy, judgment, and righteousness are God's, and the signs of all three are shown in this one massacre. We do not glory in bloodshed, even in the bloodshed of the jihadi, but we glory in the righteousness of God, the mercy of God, and the judgment of God. I don't think this is over, CF. In fact, I know it's not over. God will continue to use these like Assyrians, hordes, to exact his judgment on the nations. But know that God does not stand alongside our victimizers. Their time is coming, and it will soon come sooner than they could ever know. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, etc. all think God is helping them. He's merely loosening his restraints on them for a time. Once that time is done, once he has exacted judgment, that judgment will turn on them. The light of his eye will cast them all aflame.